Hello, class. Welcome to Unit 1 review. This is Professor Wilcox and Professor McClellan, and we're going to walk you through some of the most common pain points for Unit 1. And luckily, there's not too many of those points of difficulty. Most people sail through it, but that doesn't mean that you're not confused about something or don't have a question. And
Luckily, there's not too many of those.
Someone's playing
points of difficulty.
in the background.
Most people sail through it, but that doesn't mean that you're not confused about something or don't have a.
That was me. Oh, the audio quality was way too good for it to be you. Okay, so I started. So we're gonna cover some of those basics, talk about some of the homework assignments, and feel free to drop in questions as you have them. And so I'm going to turn it over to Professor McClellan, who seems clearer headed tonight than I am, and I'll let him walk you through some of these questions, concerns, and likewise.
I don't know about clearer headed, but I'll do my best. I wanted to make a general comment first about getting started on Unit 1, because I noticed that as of this morning, there were a disturbing number of students who had not even started yet, and the unit is due on Tuesday. And I know that an online course is sometimes easy to forget, because it sort of just lives in your computer and it doesn't ever come and knock on your door and bug you. You don't have to show up to it. So just if some of you are kind of not used to that whole workflow of an online course, it requires a lot of self-reminders and being tuned into your email and checking stuff and being on Piazza, our web forum, which is really, really important. That's where all the action happens. That's where all the news gets to you. So anyway, that's just my little lecture. Just don't delay, because it's a big unit and there's a lot there. There are bigger units coming down the pike, but there's a lot to do. So I'm going to stop lecturing and share my screen with you so that we can walk through some stuff. So tell me if you're seeing my screen.
I'm seeing it.
Okay, great. So on the left, you have Unit 1. And another quick note to just make sure people are clear on, there's the course expectations quiz is required before you can enter Unit 1. So if you're having trouble getting to Unit 1, you have to do that first. And then you have to do the required entry survey. And I want to emphasize that this is not we're not prying into your business. This is purely just to help us know who's in the course and why you're here and what your experience is, to help us design the course for the future. This has no bearing whatsoever on how you're going to be treated or your role in the class. As we've said before, this is there's no prerequisite. Everybody's completely ready to succeed in the course, no matter what experience you have or lack thereof, or any mixture of experience or anything. Okay, so enough blabbing away. Remember, this is really for you. We're just killing time talking to you until you ask us questions. So if you have questions, we were going to be thrilled, because we want to really get to the core of what you actually want to know, instead of kind of guessing what you want to know. And but in the meantime, we'll do that. So I figured, this isn't really a teaching session where we're actually teaching you the material, because that's what the lessons are for. This is more of a study aid session. And so with that in mind, I want to focus on the homeworks rather than on the lessons, which you can read and delve into for yourself. So that is why I have the first homework up on my screen. One thing that comes up in this course is not like, what is the content, what is the material, but rather, how do I just do this assignment? Just what are the nuts and bolts of like how I go about the task of doing the assignment. So this one is really fun, and it can be intimidating for people because you're just thrown into this piece of music and asked to really follow along. And some of you have never seen written music before, so you're like, how on earth are we expected to read these full-blown musical excerpts? But try it and you'll find that you can do it. If you have questions, let us know. Just another element of all of these assignments is that repetition. You can redo things and try them many times and take advantage of that. Make sure that you're using that feature because that can be really helpful. I'm not going to dwell on this one too much because it's fairly straightforward. So where's the next homework? Ascending and descending. Any questions? Does anybody have any questions?
This one in particular is useful for when you do scales. It's important that you know the difference between steps and leaps. So when you do scales and triads, you're gonna be looking at steps for scales and leaps when we make triads, and that distinction might seem subtle, but it's actually pretty important. So it's important that you kind of nail this one down, and it's really basic. It's just a matter of simple counting.
Yep, and it's a matter of getting used to seeing what's on the staff visually and being able to quickly tell what you're dealing with. And we mentioned this in the last thing, but a big part of this course is it's like learning a language, and it's all about repetition of tasks to get quick and to get automatic on a task, so that you can instantly see the really basic detail of something, so that you can do a more complex task with it. For example, if it takes you 15 seconds to figure out if something is a step or a leap every single time, then when you're doing scales where there's all these other elements involved, it's going to be so slow. So the point of doing all these really basic things first is to get you quick doing them, so that they're second nature. Like simple analogy is reading a book. If you had to go and remember what every single letter was every time you read any word, you'd never get through the book. And that's part of what reading is. So music is the same way. So the other thing with this is just make sure you use, and this is a general point with all of the assignments, make sure that you read the instructions really carefully. And what you're going to be asked to do is enter certain strings of text, letters or numbers in the boxes, and be really careful that you're entering these accurately, because the computer is really stupid and it can only read the exact string of letters or numbers that we've pre-programmed into it with the right answer. So if you read the instructions and you're careful, you'll sail right through. But if you're a little bit loosey-goosey with the way that you enter the letters and numbers, you'll get a lot of problems. So in this case, it's pretty straightforward. AS, AL, DS, DL. Ascending step, ascending leap, descending step, descending leap. Again, that's just kind of the nuts and bolts of how it's done. Page 2, don't forget to go on to the next page.
But I'm dying to know what the difference between ascending steps and ascending leaps are. Can't you?
Oh,
know that for me?
I'm totally skipping over the basic thing. How could I do such a thing?
Yeah, everything about the assignment, everything you said is critical, but I need you to do it for me. Show me how to do it.
Okay, all right. I'm going to give away an answer. This is why these live sessions are just so special, because it's like we're handing out cash willy-nilly just for the people who showed up. So I'm about to give out an actual answer.
To say that that we are not handing out cash. Clearly, this is not cash, but it is nice to have an answer.
Well,
let's make the distinction. There is no cash being handed out.
It is good to emphasize that I'm only making an analogy. I'm equating
no actual cash.
I'm handing out answers which are, in a course like this, as good as cash. So number 1, we have, I don't know if this will work to blow up my screen. I don't think you can see that I'm blowing up my screen. Can you? Probably not. Okay, doesn't matter.
Nope.
So first of all, up and down. This might seem totally not even worth mentioning, but it's worth mentioning. So ascending is when the notes go up, for example, these 2 notes. Descending is when the notes go down. The more crucial point is step versus leap. And a step is simply 2 notes that are, one is on a space and one is on a line, and they're as close as they can possibly be. So for example, in number 4, that is a step, because you can't fit any other notes in between. And It's going down, so that is a descending step. First one, you could, the first note is on a line, next note is on a line. There's a space in between, so there's room for another note in between the notes, and therefore it is not a step, it's a leap, a descending leap. So I think that covers it. Anything else to add? Just again, be methodical and be careful. You'll notice some of them have a repeated note, so we skip that over here, this on number 9, because it's the same thing between those two. All right. Again, we want questions. Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels telling you things that you may already know. So shoot us questions on Piazza. Okay, moving on. Homework for the alphabet. You thought you were in college, and now we're asking you to practice your alphabet. Well, get used to it, because you're in a music theory class and it's all about the alphabet. Okay, this is actually worth mentioning. This can cause some confusion. The musical alphabet, so simple and yet so worth figuring out. When we say 2 notes below E, what is 2 below E? We are counting E as 1. And this is a really basic and crucial distinction, that in the number counting system of musical letters, it's a non-zero system. If you've studied math or human culture and history, you probably learned about the point when we, as humanity, invented the concept of zero, and it became really crucial to our whole system of mathematics. In music, it's as if that never happened. There is no zero, so you're counting from 1. And so when you count from E down, and here's the other thing you need for this assignment. Below means counting backwards in the alphabet. Above means counting forwards, because the notes go up in the order of the alphabet. So A, B, C, D, E is da, 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 something like that. It's notes going up. So 2 below E, E is 1. The next one is 2, and it's 1 backward in the alphabet, and therefore it is Professor Wilcox. We lost him.
I didn't realize you were asking me to pay attention. Sorry.
The students, this is not a role model.
What?
This is not a role model to follow. You should always be paying attention. No
Really?
spacing.
I'm doing this little thing on my...
Okay. The answer is D. 2 below E is D. All right. So that's the idea there. Just to jump ahead, 3 above D. Okay, D, now you're going forward in the alphabet, and D is 1. So D is 1, E is 2, and F is 3. Okay. All right. Again, questions. You know what? I want to maybe go a little faster than I'm going. I think I'm going into too much detail on these fairly basic assignments. So
I would concur. You can probably skip on faster and keep it moving.
All right. So just with this one, just read the directions carefully. It's really important to learn the piano keyboard, because it's like a map of music theory, and it will help some people when they're doing intervals and scales and some of the more advanced stuff in this course. They literally are picturing the piano keyboard in their head. And if you are that kind of person, if you play piano, you're already there. That's great. If you don't play piano, it still can be a really useful tool. So that's why we have these assignments. Okay, enharmonics. This starts to get nasty. You may have wondered in your travels through life, why on earth is that middle of the 3 black keys, why does it have 2 names? Uh-oh, there's a mosquito. Okay, got him. Sorry. Why does that key on the piano called an A flat or a G sharp? And this is starting to get into trickier territory. So use the piano keyboard and read the lesson carefully, and you will be fine. And ask questions on Piazza if you're confused. Okay, piano ID homework. So again, this is a matter of figuring out the just where notes are on the piano. And again, I just want to summarize that like this might seem insanely simple, or kind of like, why are you making us do all this repetitive stuff? And again, it's to build that skill of kind of making things quick and automatic. So you need to be able to see the third note of the 3 black notes on the piano instantly, just without even thinking, just know what the note name is, or what the 2 possible note names are. In that case, B flat or A sharp. That's what that's about. Look for the X's. If you can't find them right away, they're there. Right. Treble clef. A note is not a note unless there's a clef. If I hid this treble clef and gave you the 5 lines of the staff and this little note sitting on top, nobody in the world could tell you what pitch that is, because the clef is what gives the pitch its name. Any pop quiz, what does clef mean in French? French scholars think means key, in the sense of the key to how to do this assignment correctly. In other words, it holds the key to telling you what the pitch, all the pitches in that staff are. So the clef is really important. It's pretty cool. The lesson here talks about the history of clefs and how this is actually just a big fancy letter G, which is pretty cool. That's why the note is G, and so on. So that's pretty straightforward. Same thing. I'm going to skip over bass clef because that's the same concept. In fact, I'm going to just skip ahead because we're getting short on time and we're not getting tons of questions, which means that you all already know how to do this. Piano ID 3. Now we're connecting the staff and the keyboard. One thing to note about this that some people have found confusing: the numbers listed on the keyboard, 1, 4, 9, 16, those are arbitrary, just to help you count the keys on the keyboard literally from left to right, 1 to 88. And those are just reference numbers. They don't have any meaning for the assignment other than to help you so you don't have to count from 1 every single time. Okay, so anything else? Let me just skip through. I want to get to the project. That's why I'm sort of rushing. Piano ID, again, we're connecting the staff and the keyboard. Octave homework. So this is really important as well to know the octave numbers. You'll find, if any of you use like digital audio workstations to make music, or if you've seen those, they identify like C4 is different than C5, and it's really useful when you're studying theory to be able to know that middle C is C4, and so on. So that's what that's about. And finally, creative project. Now, sometimes we get the question, so I'm going to go over to the instructions. Sometimes we get the question, well, there's no place to put rhythms or time signature and all that kind of stuff. And our answer to that is, if you know that stuff, that's great. But remember that this is an absolute bare bones beginner music theory course. And if you're starting this course from scratch and you know nothing about music, you've never heard of a time signature. So we don't put it in the assignment yet because it just hasn't been taught yet. If you do know what a time signature is, that's excellent because it'll serve you well in the course. And you can still be thinking of one when you do this assignment. There's no place for you to write it. And you can be thinking of a melody, or sorry, of a rhythm and a time signature, but just all you have to actually write is bare bones notes on the staff. So here's how it looks when you're doing the assignment. You drag and drop pitch. And remember, if you don't have a clef, this is what I was saying before. This note that I just put there, it's meaningless until I put a clef. Now that I put a clef, it is a, whoops, it is a C. And then I'm going to put a B flat. And I'm just going to write a little tune. And I may not know what this tune sounds like at first until I get myself the very handy pop-up piano, which I strongly recommend. I don't know if this shows up in the video, but
no, it's a separate piano. But yeah,
but all you do is you click that little button.
The little piano on the screen does work.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. I probably can't hear it, but I'm clicking and I'm hearing the notes. So that's going to be really useful as well. So if I wanted to play this little melody, which you will want to do because it's part of the assignment, you would use all the skills you've learned and you'd say, well, okay, that's a C and it's C5, although you don't have to worry about that so much here. But let's say that this is C5. Click on it so you can hear that nice C. Okay, B flat, this is B, so B flat is the black note right below B, so that's B flat, and then A is right here. So I really encourage you to connect what you're seeing and what you're hearing. You may notice that there's no way to play back your melody automatically, and that is very deliberate. There are many notation software programs that will do that. We deliberately designed this so that you cannot do that because we want you to have to do it all by your lonesome. So back to the instructions, I just want to go over those. Okay, there's a lot. This looks like a lot with like 2-3 pages of instructions. It's really very simple. We just wanted to be detailed so that you aren't left with any questions. Compose a melody, that's the step one. Now, another question that comes up, and I want to emphasize this, notate the same melody twice. You're only writing one melody, but you were writing it twice in different octaves. So if this were my melody, I would then, when I'm done with it, let's say I needed the second line, I'd give myself plenty of space, put in a bass clef, and I'm going to write the melody again, but with it not in the same octave. In other words, it's lower because I'm in a lower staff. So I'm going to put my ledger line because I need that. I'm going to put my note. This is another C, but it's now middle C. I'm going to put my B flat and my A. And this is what your melody should, this is what your assignment should look like. Same melody written twice, one melody written twice in different clefs. And this is for obvious reasons to help you practice both clefs. But we're not looking for two melodies. There's some requirements. Melodies should contain 20 to 30 pitches. So this melody would not qualify, obviously. A few accidentals, meaning sharps and flats. We just don't want you to write all white notes because we want you to push your skill level a little bit. What else? Then you're going to make a screen capture. And that's up to your computer to do that. On a Mac, it's Shift-Command-4, and then you drag and so on. I'm not sure on a PC. No other formats are allowed, so you have to use this Flash tool that we provided. Then the fun part, make an audio recording of yourself. And if you are really bold and daring, you can sing it or play it on an instrument. But if you're very normal and want to use the most convenient tool, we encourage you to use the on-screen piano and make a little audio recording in your computer. It doesn't have to sound fancy at all. It can sound very, very simple and basic. I'm just going to make that bigger so you can actually read what I'm talking about. We're not looking for highly produced, fine audio studio level work here. We're looking for accuracy of matching what you wrote on the staff to what we hear in the melody. The notes have to match. Just be methodical and careful. Then, very important, do not forget this. Write a short narrative describing the emotional content of your melody. What were you thinking about? What did it remind you of? And this is totally open-ended. This is not, you could write anything as long as it's appropriate and we will be happy. We just want you to connect the music to something meaningful so it's not this complete abstraction. And think about, you know, how do different notes sound together and what do they make you think of emotionally? So there's 3 components and they're each worth 10 points. And if you do all 3, you're going to get like a 20, you're going to get a 30. But if you really, really messed up one of them, maybe you'll get like a 29. If you totally showed no effort, but you turned in all 3, you'll still get like above a 25. So this is all about doing the homework. This is not about turning in some masterful work of art that is your finest, you know, masterpiece ever. It just turn it in and you'll be great. Yeah, so the other thing just to emphasize is that this file format is really important. We get so many submissions where it says, we get an MP3 and it says melody. Now, there's like hundreds of you guys out there and only 2 of us. So when we get melody, we're like, whose melody? What melody? So this is why we need the files to be labeled really clearly and then submit them by Dropbox, and we will go through and grade and listen to all of them and enjoy them. And it's one of our favorite parts of doing this course. So we get some just amazing stuff, and by amazing I mean it's inspiring and wonderful to hear everything that you guys do. I'm not saying that some of them are like, wow, this is the most talented kid we've ever encountered, and this other kid's average or whatever. We're just amazed by how consistently high the level is across all of them, and just the fact that people who have never made music before are composing, and you will all, I guarantee you, every one of you will do something really cool and special that we will notice and appreciate. So I feel like I've been blabbing for a half hour, and that is in fact the case. So I'm going to stop.
Well, I wouldn't say we're blabbing.
I've been
you've been pontificating,
regaling.
Oh, that's, I don't know. Regaling's that's a lot to live up to.
Well, I'm going to turn off my screen sharing so that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I think I just did. Anything to add?
No, I wouldn't want to step on your regalia.
I think we didn't get any questions.
No, I've just been watching it. No questions, but we do have some people watching, and
Good.
As always, for those people who are watching, we appreciate it, and for those people who go and take a look afterwards, we also appreciate that, and never feel that you can't ask a question based on what you're watching if you're watching afterwards. So,
yes, well put. So shall we call it a night?
Yeah, let's call it quits, and we'll all get together again for Unit 2.
Yes, and again, if you haven't started Unit 1, drop everything and start.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Good night, everybody. See you next time. Stay tuned for another one of these for Unit 2.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.